Chapter 281 Indian Arranged Marriage, Part 5. After 3 days of bliss, and alone with no interference from the outside world, the police paid them a visit. They advised Pooja that she needed to appear in court for a pre-trial hearing for her mother and her husband. She was also advised she should find a lawyer to represent her in the matter and that she could return to her home. The officer in charge noticed the alarm in her eyes and explained that the police were detaining her mother and husband and that they would not be allowed to return to her home even if they were released. Pooja smiled the biggest smile when she realized that she was now free to continue her life with her lover in her own house. There would be no interference from a husband she didn't love and a well-meaning and overbearing mother. That same day the two lovers left the hotel and returned to their deserted castle. The king and queen had not been able to return to their palace, but now they were home. It was where they lived together and completed each other. It was where their lovely princess needed to be with them. By now, she had already told him about what had happened to her under her mother's hand and the greed of her husband. She told him that the American police had promised her that they were going to contact New Delhi police and try to get their daughter back. After living for a few days with his beloved in their golden castle, Uncle Jimmy decided to go and visit his first wife and children. When he arrived at the gate of his first wife's house, he found the house was locked and no one was there. The neighbors informed him that his wife and children left America and returned to India. Moreover, they said that his wife sold the house and returned to her homeland for good. Jimmy fell to his knees and began to weep like a small child who had lost its mother. He had never expected that his first wife would do such a thing without his permission or informing him. When Jimmy overcame the impact of the disheartening news, he went to one of the Muslim community leaders to seek his advice and counsel. The house was in the name of his wife because she was the one who bought it with her own money when they were new arriving in America. He had contributed nothing towards the purchase. The law of America would not allow his wife to take his children away from him and return to India for good without his knowledge and consent. For that reason, he was tempted to go directly to the police, lodge a complaint against his wife, and accuse her of kidnapping his children. On second thought, was when Jimmy decided to go to a Muslim religious leader and seek his advice before going to the police. When Jimmy reached the office of his Muslim community leader, he was confronted with another surprise. The leader handed over to him his divorce decree, which his ex-wife had entrusted him with. The leader told him that his ex-wife had gone to the court and filed for divorce. He then told him further that the court granted her a divorce on the grounds of adultery and bigamy. Jimmy had received a notice of the pending action while in jail. He threw the papers away knowing his wife could not possibly be serious. Whenever the guards gave him papers from the court, he signed the summons and threw the papers in the garbage, thinking he would get things straightened out once he was released from jail. With shaking hands, Jimmy received the judgment of divorce. He tried to find out from his religious leader why his ex-wife had decided to leave the United States and return to India. The Muslim leader gently told Jimmy that he had tried to ascertain the reason for her flight and tried to prevent her from acting in haste, but to no avail. He also said that his ex-wife told no one of her reasons for returning to India. Then, the leader said to Jimmy that no rational Indian would leave the promised land and return to the hellish land that he or she had come from. Rehana Khan leaving with her children remained a mystery no Indian Muslim could explain. After receiving this second heartbreaking news, Jimmy went to some close Muslim friends of his ex-wife and tried to find out from them why his wife had decided to divorce him and take his children and return to India. None of them could help. All of them collectively believed that his shameful affair with the Hindu girl was the main reason, which led his Muslim wife to divorce him and punish him by depriving him of his children. Additionally, they said to him, no woman could tolerate her husband having an affair with another woman. Jimmy said to them that he had married the second woman according to the Sunnah of Allah and His Messenger. The women just told him exactly the way they felt and said to him, still no woman would agree to have another woman sharing her husband with her even if it was allowed by their religion. One Muslim woman said to Jimmy in his face, "Wrong is wrong, whether Allah permits it in His Holy Quran or whether the gracious Prophet Muhammad, prayers and peace of Allah be upon him, did it while he was alive." From those exchanges, Jimmy learned a great lesson in wisdom. He discovered that for more than 2 years, he was trying to love 2 women and treat them equally. But his experience proved that marrying 2 women and trying to love and treat them equally is practically impossible. He understood that no man in the world could love and please 2 women at the same time. He concluded that his relationship with his first wife died the first day he fell in love with the young girl that he picked up in front of the jail. Since then, he had been trying to fulfill a religious duty and selfishly imprisoned his first wife for the sake of being close to his children. His marital indiscretions had cost him his first wife, his children, and sent him to jail. Now all he had was a criminal record and remorse that would follow him the rest of his life. Jimmy remembered how his ex-wife was so loving and faithful to him. When he was sentenced to 15 years in prison in Mumbai, she spent a lot of money to get him out of that filthy rotten prison after 3 horrifying years behind bars. She was the one who brought him with her to the States. If it wasn't for her, he would have been there until this present day suffering and rotting in an Indian prison. When they came to America, she was the one who took care of him and encouraged him to work as a taxi driver. She was the one who bought a car and allowed him to use it in his taxi service. She gave him 2 lovely sons. She made her first son treat him as his own father. After all this, what reward did he give to his loving and faithful wife? He fell in love with a girl as young as his daughter and forgot about his commitment to the mother of his children and a faithful and loyal wife. He denied her rights as a wife to be loved and honored and treated her as if she was the babysitter of his children. After falling in love with the young Indian girl, he lost interest in his first wife and very rarely slept with her. When she found out that he had married another woman and that there was a child, she did not kick him out of her house or file for a divorce. She put up with his unfaithfulness and continued to respect him as her husband. Jimmy understood too late that his mistake was being ungrateful to the one who had stood by him through very difficult times for nothing more than a fling. He wept bitterly for his terrible mistake, and the loss of his family. Jimmy still held the belief that his girlfriend was behind his unexplainable divorce and the sudden departure of his wife. He believed that Pooja had threatened his wife and made her run away for the sake of protecting her life and that of her children. After all, Pooja had so much money, she could have paid someone enough money to terrorize her into leaving the country. Jimmy returned to his girlfriend's mansion and had a big fight with her. He accused her of forcing his Muslim wife to divorce him and leave the country. He accused her of paying gangsters to scare his first wife and their children. Pooja cried like a baby, denying every accusation he hurled against her. When Jimmy threatened to leave her for good, Pooja fell at his feet, grabbing his legs and begged him not to leave her. She told him how much she had been through and how much she had sacrificed to be with him. She said that she forsook her loving mother and ran away from her Hindu husband because of her love for him. For his love she left her homeland and came back to America after being away from him for many months. The long separation did not make her forget him or make her lose her love for him. She told him she would pay for everything if he wanted to go to India to search for his family, and she even said she would go with him. She would travel with him to Mumbai and help him find his wife and children, and they could also search for their infant daughter at the orphanage. Her tears and pleadings somehow convinced Jimmy that she was genuine and that she had nothing to do with his wife's decision to divorce him and leave America. Nevertheless, Jimmy told her that he would not leave any stone unturned in order to find out why his wife divorced him, took his children and fled to India.